The statements or agreement or the contract or the deal. Deals other than gifts and charities require statements from one or both sides. The gift is like goodwill or an honoring. Charity is like helping someone. In these cases, you can give the person without saying anything, and he can take it without saying anything. Deals other than gifts and charities require statements from one or both sides, whether explicit or implicit with intent. Explicit sale means like to say, I sell this to you. Implicit with intent, like to say, I give this to you. He intends a sale. I give this to you for such and such. Like divorce, you know about the rule of divorce. If he says, you are divorced, then the divorce takes place explicitly, regardless of his intention. Or if he says, cover yourself in front of me with the intention of divorce. Or he says, go back to your family. Or something else that's not explicitly divorce, but he intends that. Then it would be a divorce. So other deals are like that too. But marriage requires that you say marriage. Nikah or ziwaj. Whether as a noun or a verb. You can't say, I give my daughter to you only without the word marriage, according to the Shafi'i school. Also, the Salam contract. Let's review that there. The Salam contract needs the word Salam in it, or Salaf. So is there a way to do that implicitly? Let's see, inshallah. The mute makes understandable gestures. Yani, sign language, for example. And what is understandable to everyone is explicit. Writing is to preserve the verbal agreement, not replace it. Very important. Although the non-Muslims, as far as I know, they say the opposite to this. But the opposite of that actually makes you able to cheat people and trick people. Because it's clear when you talk to someone and agree. If you speak to him face to face, and then if he doesn't understand what you are saying, he will say, what do you mean? But if you put some stuff in writing and he has no idea what does that mean, and he wants to do the deal, and he doesn't even want to get a lawyer necessarily, and whatever, hopefully everything goes fine, and then you sign a paper. Or you will take the effort to read all of it like that. And many people don't know how to read or write. So writing is to preserve the verbal agreement, not replace it, except the mute. And a written divorce requires an intention. A written divorce, even if the words are explicitly written, has the judgment of an implicit divorce. So when do you not need an intention to divorce? If it's an explicit statement. Like he says with his tongue, you are divorced or I divorce you. But what if he wrote, like in a text, I divorce you? Then without an intention, this is not valid. Like an implicit divorce. The writing has the judgment of implicit divorce. Some deals require witnesses, like marriage. That's known, but not divorcing or returning. The divorce doesn't require a witness, and returning the wife does not require a witness. Stipulations. The Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "The very truthful tradesman shall be gathered on resurrection day with the prophets, the siddiqs, and the martyrs." One must adhere to all valid stipulations of a contract and must not cheat, like circulating counterfeit money, that's cheating, or dyeing a slave's white hair black, that's cheating. Not even when dealing with a combatant can the Muslim cheat. Not every invalid stipulation invalidates the deal. Not every invalid stipulation condition invalidates the deal. Like a condition of a man not marrying another wife, this will not invalidate the marriage. If they said, I give my daughter in marriage to you under the condition that you don't get another wife for the dowry of such and such. So that condition is nothing, and the marriage is still valid. And a condition for a partner to earn more for doing more work. So you do a valid partnership by physically mixing your money, not doing an electronic transfer into one bank account. By physically mixing your similar money, you become partners in that money. Similar money means in a way that once you mix it, you don't know whose is whose. Now you're partners in this money, depending on your percentage. Then, in order to deal in this money, you have to authorize each other, or someone has to be authorized. You don't have to all be authorized. To deal with your partner's share, that is, you need to be authorized. To deal with your partner's share, you need to be authorized. So, any profit or loss from this partnership depends on the contribution, depends on your percentage, not how much work you do, not who does the work, or not anything else. Nothing else. Only your contribution. So, if a partner had a condition to earn more for doing more work, the partnership is still valid if it's done properly, and that condition is nothing. Therefore, if one says, I gift you this for the rest of your life, or if you die before me, I take it back, the gift is valid and the condition is invalid. For one would not own something unless he is alive. So he gave him a gift here. When he says, I gift you this for the rest of your life. So for the rest of your life, like that's a condition there. So the condition is nothing and the gift is valid. Or if you die before me, I take it back. Here, the condition is nothing and the gift is valid. The condition is nothing. So if he dies before him, then what happens? It goes to his heirs, doesn't go back to the giver. The condition is nothing. The gift is valid and the condition is invalid. For one would not own something unless he is alive. Consequently, when he dies, his heirs inherit it. However, if he says, I give you this house as long as I am alive, or as long as so-and-so is alive, it is not a valid gift. Intending, there cannot be a condition on either side to do the duty of the other. Intending, the date palms and the grapevines. There cannot be a condition on either side to do the duty of the other. What does that mean? Because we said previously that intending, you do work that benefits the trees, not the land. So you're not going to be building walls or digging trenches. Who does that? The owner does that. So can you agree with the owner that you do some of that stuff that the owner does, and the owner does some of the stuff you do? No. Intending, there cannot be a condition on either side to do the duty of the other. Remember here, tending is not hiring, but maybe using the word hire does really work. But we need to be mindful here if we want to understand all these different types of dealings. So what's tending here? Musaqah. It is to tend to date palms and grapevines for a percentage of the yield. It's that specific. That's not hiring with the meaning of ijara, which is to hire someone for a task or a time. To hire someone for a task or a time. Tending is much more specific than that. It's its own deal. So a sale cannot be contingent upon something, nor a marriage. Meaning you can't say, I sell you. Let's see what this footnote says. You can't say, I sell you this if my dad comes home. Or I give my daughter in marriage to you in the spring, when the spring comes, or something. No condition. It can't be contingent if such and such happens. What is dealing with a combatant? That means you're at war with someone. You're in an army and the other guy is in the other army and you're doing a deal with him. Naam. A sale here, expiration. A sale cannot have an expiration, nor a marriage. That's mut'ah, which is basically prostitution. You're welcome. Mut'ah is prostitution. Nor a return of the wife. He can't return his wife for a limited time. You can't say, I return her for this much time. Nor a reward, nor profit sharing, nor co-signing. Reward, we talked a little bit about that last time. Co-signing, also we talked a little bit about that. Profit sharing, also we talked about that. And here, let's zero in on it really quick. Profit sharing is another one that maybe the word hiring could really work there, but it's its own deal, own type of deal, which is that one has money, one does the work, and this work has to be trade. And they split the profit based on the percentage they agree on. One has the money, one does the work, and they split the profits in accordance with their agreement, the percentage that they agreed to. This is not ijara, hiring someone for a task or for a time. So there we have three contracts that's important for you to tell the difference between them. One, ijara, renting and hiring. Two, musaqa, tending to the trees, particular types of trees, for a percentage of the yield. And qirad, profit sharing. One person having the money, the other one doing the work, which is specifically trade, not more, and they split the profit based on the percentage they agreed to. Three different contracts. Now also, there's two contracts that we've mentioned now that are important for you to tell the difference between them. Qirad, profit sharing, and what? Sharika, partnership. Those are two different contracts. What's the sharika? Partnership. Everyone contributes some similar money, physically contributes some similar money, identical money, and mixes it physically, etc., like we already explained, and then they become partners in that money. That's sharika. Profit sharing is what? One person has the money, one person does the work. That's not sharika. Partnership. Now, maybe you might call that a partnership. I'm not forbidding you. I cannot forbid someone from that. If in English they called it that. But if you want to understand these contracts, we need to have some words here. So, a sale cannot have an expiration, nor a marriage, nor a return of the wife, nor a reward, nor profit sharing, nor co-signing. As opposed to lending, when you let someone hold your item for him to give it back. This can have an expiration, doesn't have to though. So if you don't give it an expiration, the rule is what? Who will remind us? If you lend someone your item, here's the question. If you lend someone an item and you didn't specify when to give it back, then what's the rule? When does the person have to give it back? 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. No, not when you ask for it. Or that means you can keep it. Yes, I'll repeat the question. You lend someone an item to give it back to you. They can't keep it. That's the deal. That's what this deal is for. For you to get it back, you're letting them hold it. But you didn't tell them when. So what's the rule here? When does the person have to give it back? 5, 4, 3, 2. When they're done using it, they return it as soon as they're done using it. So the way I know it is after using it once normally. After using it once normally. A rental has to expire. You can rent by either time or task. He doesn't do the work forever without stopping. A statement from one side. Lending an item requires that the borrower be specified. So you can say, here, you can hold this. He doesn't have to say anything. Or he can say, let me hold this. And then you just don't say anything and it's cool. That's not haram. That's not invalid. Authorization does not require verbalized acceptance. Authorization. So it is valid through a letter or a third person. And it is needed for a partner to spend his partner's share. Let me read that again. Authorization does not require verbalized acceptance. So you're authorizing, you're saying, I authorize you to do such and such. Or you say what means that, like, do such and such for me. So is that enough for him to do it? Or he has to say something? That's enough. Then if he does it, that's sufficient. So it is valid through a letter or a third person. So it is valid through a letter or a third person. And it is needed for a partner to spend his partner's share. We said that already. And you know what a partnership is. In these words of ours. So when you're dealing with someone who's not using the words we're using, you need to understand what type of deal this one is doing. You don't have to be caught up on the words as much as understand the deal. If it is refused, that authorization, the authorization is not valid. And likewise, if it is conditional. Authorization is not valid if it's conditional. Safekeeping, for safekeeping, one says something like, hold this for me, or guard this for me. And it's enough. 2 or 3 divorces in one statement are valid by consensus. Explicit or implicit, conditional or not. I think you know all of that. Yani. 2 or 3 divorces in one statement. So he says in one statement, you're divorced twice. So he just spent 2 divorces. Or if he says you're divorced 3 times, then he just spent all 3 divorces. But if he says you're divorced, you're divorced, you're divorced, like that, and he thinks that that all of that is needed for a divorce, then he only divorced her once, and many brothers have this misunderstanding. So 2 or 3 divorces in one statement are valid by consensus, no difference in opinion. Explicit divorces or implicit, we said what those mean. Conditional divorce or not. Conditional means he says if you leave the house, you're divorced. Or he says if you leave the house, you're divorced twice. Or no condition. Now that conditional divorce, if a man does that, he did put that divorce into the woman's hand. Then if she did what was that, that wouldn't necessarily be haram if it's not haram for her to do. If it's not haram for her to go out that door, like if it was her own house, then it wouldn't be haram for her to leave. Then he's then put that divorce in her hand by doing that. Statements from both sides. When a statement is required from both, either may propose and the other must accept. Without long silence in between, if it is a sale. Nor interruption with irrelevant speech, like, how are you and the children? Meaning, you say, I sell you this for such and such. That person says, how are you and the children? I buy this for such and such. So that invalidated the statement. That invalidated the deal. If they do not speak the same language, they use an interpreter. Meaning those two who want to do a deal. These are examples of required statements. Examples. 1. For selling. I sell this to you for this. Or sell this to me for this. Or I give you this for this. Or I buy this for this. Or take this for this, etc. Acceptance is like, I accept, or I agree, or I buy it, or I sell it, etc. Some said that buying something cheap like a loaf does not require exchanged statements. Some said that statements are not an integral. Some said that statements are not an integral as long as the sale is done as usual. Yani, it's done normally. And that it may come from one side, the statement doesn't have to be from both sides. Some said a sale can be from one side. And similar was said about renting. So what sayings do we have here? One saying is, for a sale, you need statements from both sides. One saying is, for a sale, it's valid to have statement from one side and silence from the other. One saying is, you don't need statements as long as the sale is normal. And similar was said about renting. In hiring, you can say, I hire you for this job for a month for such and such salary. Or, I now rent you this house for a month for such and such fee. Or, I now transfer to you the benefits of my house for a month in exchange of such and such fee. The other party says, I now accept. Or, I now rent this house for what you mentioned. Or the like. It is not valid to rent or hire using the word sale, because selling is not restricted by time. Parts and labor cannot be mixed. Marriage requires the terms inkah or tazweej, or their translation, like marriage. So English has words like matrimony, and also there's another word. It's not coming to me. wedding, matrimony, to wed, to marry, or to be wed, to be married, and also matrimony. So it is not valid that she be gifted. Like to say, I now give my daughter, or my ward, if she's not your daughter, you're giving her away in marriage to you. That's a valid way. Not, I just give her to you, or I gift her to you. Or marry your daughter to me, or give your daughter in marriage to me. And the other side accepts in the presence of witnesses, not over the phone or video. If the dowry is not mentioned in the contract, she deserves the commensurate dowry. I think you're aware of that judgment. She deserves what a woman like her gets. So they did the words of the marriage without mentioning any dowry. She still gets a dowry, but not anything specific, because they didn't agree. Rather, she gets what a woman like her normally gets. One's agent says, I now accept Fulana in marriage on behalf of so-and-so, and she becomes the wife of the other. So that's how a man can get married if he's not present, like brothers who are in prison. Instead of doing it over the phone or over the video, to have someone stand in his place, and for the woman to be given in marriage to him, and he has that one accept on his behalf. Then she's his wife. Then if she goes and sees him, they can touch and everything. Or if he comes home, then immediately he can go in the house, for example. To not count the khula as a divorce, the term divorce must be avoided. So if she says, divorce me for such and such price, or he says, I divorce you for this amount, then that's a khula, and it's definitely counted as a divorce. So if they say, give me khula for such and such amount, without intending a divorce, but intending a breach of the marriage by payment, that's not a divorce, then that's valid. According to a saying, it's not a divorce and the marriage is breached. What's the point of it not being a divorce? If they got remarried, he can't bring her back because she paid him. So if they got remarried, then they didn't use a divorce. But saying khula while intending divorce is a divorce. So let me know if that's not clear for you, inshallah. For a salam or salaf sale, one says, for example,